One of the most prominent faces for the U.S. government's critical mineral and energy transition policies is Jigar Shah. He's director of the U.S. Department of Energy's Loan Program Office. Jigar has been behind notable mine financing, such as $102 million to Syrah Technologies to process graphite and $2.6 billion to Lithium Americas for its Thacker Pass. As of June, the cumulative dollar amounts of loans have topped $285 billion. If those are not enough numbers for you, in July, Jigar's group approved a commitment of up to $1.2 billion for a direct loan to lithium separators in Indiana. Jigar, welcome to Kitco.
Thanks for having me.
What did you announce, and why is there a need for lithium separators?
We announced a $1.2 billion loan conditional commitment to ENTEK. And, the reason why separators are so important is you can imagine that separators is really what makes the batteries reliable and safe, right? And so as we come to rely on these batteries more and more, we want to make sure that we're increasing reliability and safety and making sure that they're made here in the United States of America.
You operate the loans office. What's the gap you fill between the financing offered by the private sector and the government?
Well, in these types of situations, there is no money coming from the private sector on the debt side, right? And so what you find is that many of these projects without us have to be 100% equity financed. And that means that the cost of capital is very high. By having a manufacturing plant take advantage of our advanced technology vehicle manufacturing program, you end up with a much lower weighted average cost of capital, which means you can really create affordable separators that can compete with Asian competitors.
Now, looking at your website, you're making loan decisions, but you're also making decisions about the industry too. You have spotlights, for instance, on critical minerals, nuclear, as well as energy storage. How in the weeds do you get regarding the supply chains? Are you looking through and saying that, we're missing this particular link in the EV sector, or missing this particular link in ESS?
Yeah, and so we're part of a broader team of people here at the Department of Energy, and there are definitely people who work here who are looking at where the gaps are in our supply chain. I think one of the challenges for the Loan Programs Office is that we really have to, provide loans to people who apply. So even if I do identify a gap in the supply chain, if there's no one in the private sector looking to fill that gap, then we're a little bit stuck, right? And so we really do operate under the private sector-led, government-enabled framework. The last thing I'd say is when you think about the ENTEK separators, remember they make a certain number of separators. There's a certain number of batteries being made here in the United States. Those battery manufacturers are the ones who are going to buy the separators. And then there's a certain number of electric vehicle manufacturers who are going to use those batteries. And so we certainly have to figure out how the rest of the supply chain is keeping up with the investments that we're making. So I wouldn't say that we're necessarily leading as much as we're collecting data on the entire supply chain to make sure our loans are going to get paid back.
Now, you were working in the solar industry before you came to the loans office, Jigar. China has built up a tremendous lead in strategic sectors such as EVs and renewables. It would strike me that these industries largely benefit from economies of scale. Famously, BYD Seagull is priced under $9,000 in some markets. When you talk to people that you're funding, how do they actually compete?
Well, look, I think that we have to understand that if we're going to base our entire energy system on these new technologies, we have to have a diverse set of suppliers in the same way that we demand that from OPEC and the oil producers, right? We want to make sure we have a diversified supply chain so that you're not subject to the whims of any one country withholding access to those technologies. The other piece I'd say is that we do need to get China to recognize that it is not in their best interest to be promoting an unstable supply chain. So when you look at solar panels, all of the Chinese solar panel manufacturers are now saying that solar panels are being sold below the cost that it takes to make them. Same thing's true with the silicon manufacturers that go into solar panels. And the same thing is true for the battery supply chain that's there now, right? And so that's a problem, right? If we're going to depend on these supply chains long term, we need to make sure that folks are not selling below their cost.
With the recent interest rate hikes by the Fed, how much has this slowed big renewable projects? Do projects like, how would you say, wind projects, did they come roaring back when interest rates start to fall, Jigar?
Yeah, exactly the opposite, right? I mean, when you think about where we were before the Biden administration came in, we were at about 10 to 15 gigawatts a year. This year we'll be at 60 gigawatts of solar. So, the interest rates have had no impact whatsoever. Clearly, the IRA has been a big tailwind. But I think when you think about where we are now is now that these technologies are the cheapest technologies available, people are just willing to pay slightly higher prices as the interest rate hikes have been passed through to customers. But it's still the lowest cost energy they can procure.
Lastly, if you're talking to someone who has little understanding of DOE and what your office provides, what do you point to as being the best example of your work, the loans office work?
Well, I think when you think about everything in the energy sector that's worth thinking about, all of it really was invented here at the Department of Energy over the last 45 years, whether it's LFP batteries by John Goodenough at UT Austin, or whether it's, the electric vehicle revolution that was really set off by Tesla. And so when you think about the critical role that DOE plays, for a long time, we've played a huge role in the innovation side, but left the commercialization for other continents. I think today there's a huge shift with the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act to make America irresistible to manufacturers. And so people are really commercializing our technologies here, connecting it to the American worker. And that's very exciting.
Jigar, thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
My name is Michael McRae. You're watching Kitco Mining.